Before the new MSY terminal had even opened, crews had to dig big holes in the new foundation to repair sewage pipes that were breaking. Construction managers for the new MSY airport project said it affected a small percentage of the total pipes. But now, a year and a half later, the contractor is replacing all of the sub-slab pipe plumbing, And that's how we first started looking into this project. And tonight, we're focusing on questions about whether the fire stopping and fireproofing life safety safeguards at the new terminal were properly inspected. We've spent a lot of time over the past 2 years talking about potential dangers that you cannot see. And this time, we're talking about what's inside the ceilings, the walls, and the floors. Not just in any building, but inside the New Orleans' new billion-dollar airport.
We still have to navigate this.
Small containers of 3.4 ounces or less.
Sources close to the project who asked not to be identified say the construction process hit some turbulence, leaving a question mark about some fire safeguards at MSY. The airport says the city of Kenner and the state fire marshal signed off on the building and it's safe. But these construction documents indicate our sources weren't the only ones concerned about it. Let me explain.
1, 2, 3. Louis Armstrong. We have a world-class airport.
The terminal was initially scheduled to be completed by May 2018, and it missed 4 opening dates.
As the terminal went up, the work had to pass a number of inspections along the way to make sure it met the requirements of Louisiana's Uniform Construction Code and Fire Code.
All the bathrooms work.
While New Orleans owns the building, it's located in Kenner.
This is in my backyard, and it has to make the city of Kenner shine.
So Kenner's chief building official, James Mohammed, had to sign off when he thought the construction was done well enough to ensure the building is safe. He's important. We'll come back to him in a minute. But first, fill you in on who all the major players are. The New Orleans Aviation Board hired a group of companies, a joint venture called HGBM, to build the new terminal. The Aviation Board also hired engineering firm WSP to manage the project. WSP hired special inspections firm Terracon to double-check the work of HGBM, not just because they felt like it, but because Louisiana's Uniform Construction Code and the International Building Code require those special inspections on big projects like this one. Remember, this story is about whether fire stops and fireproofing were completed and properly inspected during the new MSY construction. Buildings like the airport are designed to keep fires contained long enough so that people like me can get out safely. Now, here's what I mean by that. Let's say I'm on the 2nd floor of the airport and a fire starts on the 1st floor down below. There are lots of penetrations to the floor, pipes and things that go through it, with spaces around them that, if they're not properly fireproofed or fire sealed, they can act like a superhighway for smoke and flames, possibly trapping me inside. But if those spaces are properly fireproofed and fire sealed, they can hold the fire off long enough that I can get out safely.
When a fire is actively burning, it's going to create a lot of heat and pressure. Even the smallest void that's not protected with proper fire stopping almost acts like a blowtorch. You're going to have really hot flames, gas, and smoke going through that opening under pressure. So it rapidly spreads the fire and smoke beyond that original compartment.
Bruce Johnson is a career fire marshal who works with Underwriters Laboratories. It's one of the largest companies that designs and tests fire stop assemblies like the wrap you see on this pipe. Special inspectors make sure those fire stops are installed properly before the government building inspectors allow the contractor to close the walls, the floors, and the ceilings. In the months before the new MSY opened, the airport's project managers, WSP, raised concerns to the airport with these non-conformance notices, or NCNs, that their special inspectors were finding closed walls around fire stops they were never called to inspect. This NCN says the project managers identified over 200 itemized life safety concerns in the terminal in March of 2019.
You got to remember, at that time, it was a mad scramble. We were trying to get everything done, so everything was going fast and furious. So there were times when there would be some of this fire stopping would be performed. The city of Kenner would be there and do their inspections.
Again, in some cases, Kenner inspectors at Mohammed's direction signed off on work before special life safety inspectors even had the chance to get a look at it. Frank Morris is a consultant who trains inspectors across the region.
What's the risk in the chief building official not enforcing the special inspections requirement?
It's a life and safety issue. I mean, you literally, or you have a major fire in a facility that's built. And if the fire proofing, fire stops have not been properly inspected and designed, then a fire is going to go to the weakest link on a fire-resistant rated wall.
Inspections as well.
Chris Spann represents the airport. He says the airport was okay with Kenner signing off because even though special inspectors were already on the job, they only needed Kenner's okay, Mohammed's okay, to open up the terminal.
There was discussions in the plan specs to have those people on site, but all that was just a means to the end to get the final jurisdictional approval from the city of Kenner.
Some of the architects also said, you know, we're signing these closeout letters as of October 31st of 2019, and we still are aware that there are some life safety question marks in this project. What's your level of concern with that, and what happened with those question marks?
So my level of concern with that is zero. The question marks, to my knowledge, were all not because there was an issue, is because we weren't able to certify that there wasn't an issue.
Some of those questions stem from things like this. If you could look down from restaurants on the second floor and follow the drain lines and pipes through the floor down below, you would find the Homeland Security bomb detection equipment that checks the luggage. In the ceiling above it, sources say you would see this: pipe penetrations through a 2-hour fire-rated floor that need special fire stopping. The wrapping on this pipe is a fire stop that was cleared by the fire marshal, Kenner, and special inspectors in another part of the airport. But this penetration in a picture we received last April doesn't have one. It's unclear if there's a fire stop of a different kind above the ceiling.
Have you heard those concerns, and are they still unsealed?
No. I guess, yes, if I've heard those concerns. So before we opened, the concessionaires, it got complicated because the concessionaires came in under their own contractors with their own designs separate from the HCBM contractor. So they were working kind of independently, and so they would come in and do their stuff, and there'd be some penetrations in the floors. And there was probably a time or two when there were some penetrations they made that they, as part of their contract, did not seal up. But before we opened, we had a contract with HCBM to go back in and said, I don't care if it was your work or not, let's go through everything and make sure everything is sealed up. So they came back after the fact and just made sure everything was sealed, even if it was a concessionaire's contractor.
We received these pictures taken in January. You can see what appears to be gaps around the pipes coming from the ceiling. We don't know how many there are. The airport says in many cases, quote, the fireproofing work was done from the top of the floor above and not from the ceiling below. The airport points out Kenner, Mohammed, signed off on the stops, and so did the fire marshal. When it came time to close out the construction, project managers ultimately agreed to close out those non-conformance notices because Kenner had signed off. They did it with a disclaimer. WSP writes that the airport was making progress sealing visible penetrations in September of 2019. Quote, these observations do not represent an inspection because no destructive testing occurred. It is also noted that the areas that have been closed in were not part of these observations. That led some of the designers to end their work on the terminal with an asterisk too. Architect Leo Daly wrote 2 weeks before the opening, quote, Leo Daly is aware of life safety issues which may or may not have been adequately resolved prior to 10/31/2019. Turns out those Kenner inspectors who helped inspect the airport are no longer with the city. One has been fired, and James Mohammed is facing federal charges.
To be honest with you, I don't have an opinion on that. I've got no choice but to have faith in the process and the people in the system at the time.
Mohammed is expected to plead guilty to federal bribery and filing false tax return charges on March 8th. He's accused of bribing a New Orleans building official for permits for his side work in the city. We reached out to his attorney for the story, but they didn't return our emails or phone calls. Again, the airport says the new MSY terminal was signed off on by Mohammed and the Louisiana Fire Marshal, again, who also inspects fire stops.